Welcome to the Pledge Pros Podcast, a podcast dedicated to unmatched value and unwavering support for UpKeep's customers and the community at large. Today, we have a panel discussing the state of the maintenance report that UpKeep does every year so we can get a deep dive and understanding of the priorities and the pain points of our industry every single year. And fortunately, today, I have three very special guests that are going to help us unpack some of the bigger picture points of that report. So first, we have George Williams with ReliabilityX. Welcome, George.
Thanks, Brian.
And we have Brian Decker of Compass Consulting. Welcome, Brian.
Excited to be here, Brian. Thank you.
And we have Chris Peppin of ProRely. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, hello, everybody.
Cool. So I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad that we're able to connect and just kind of do some high-level topics about the state of maintenance report. It's super important to UpKeep and just to really kind of understand the industry. And we survey tons of people. We talk to tons of people to try to get to what are the problems, what are the good things, what are the things that are just really standing out in the industry. And you guys are in consulting, you're talking to people every single day, you're in the plants, you're understanding the pain points, you're seeing it firsthand. And it's kind of cool the way that you operate is you're a part of it, but you're not a part of it, right? You're there to help bridge the gap of a lot of these things. And it takes tremendous insight and experience and education to really separate yourself from these problems for your customers and really look at them, subjectively to try to help solve them. And that's part of the reason why you three are sitting here, right? We want that valuable insight. So we're going to talk about these four high-level parts of this. So I'll just jump right into it, and we'll start with George. George, it said that 66% of maintenance and reliability teams report expanding budgets going into 2024. What is causing that? Is that something prior to COVID? Is it 2023? Like, where are we seeing that? And what do you think the outcomes of that's going to be?
So just a couple quick points. First, I think the number's really low. For me, I would expect it to be much higher right now, given lead times and raw material costs and just that everything from an economic perspective is costing more. The fact that only 66% of the budgets went in a increasing direction is a little worrisome for the ones that didn't.
Right.
So for the folks that did that were asked, hold flat, the assets don't care.
That's right.
Assets they just don't care. They don't care that your team wants to have your budget flat. You're either going to spend precisely what it takes to operate and maintain them well enough to get the maximum value proposition from them, or you're going to spend more and waste, or you're going to spend less and have less performance. And so, I think it's a good number because some people got an increase.
Right.
Given the economy today, I would have expected the number to be higher. And so that means people are being asked to do more with less, and that the asset just doesn't care about that.
Right. I mean, there's essentially a minimum requirement of money, which equates to manpower, maintenance, parts, whatever, to keep something at its designed capacity, right?
Correct.
And what you're saying is spot on. It's like, how are you're saying, hey, you get this much money. Okay, well, it takes this much money to maintain these assets. Well, it's not enough. Okay, well, you're going to be okay with double the cost of downtime?
Yes, many people are somehow.
It's wild, right?
It is.
Brian, what do you think?
I think you guys hit on a really good point here where, we're in a unique situation coming out of the pandemic. Things haven't flattened out yet. And so many companies are like, how do we do less with more, right? The problem there is if, like you said, the assets don't care. If you're making cuts to your maintenance and reliability programs, those things are going to come back and get you in the end, right? And then you'll find that you may have cut the wrong spot, right? So, kind of looking forward and, how long-term do we become more efficient and more effective? I think the maintenance and reliability programs is where that starts.
Right. And George, do you see your customers or anybody reaching out to inquire about how they can do less with more? Are people, trying to figure that out with you, or are they just going, look, we don't have it, we'll just keep doing what we've been doing?
It's unique. You're a consultant, so I got to be a little careful here, but everyone wants to do more with less, and they all want the magic pill that you just take and suddenly the plant's reliable and they want the pill for free. It really doesn't work that way. You have to put in a specific amount of effort behind it, right? Your vehicle will survive if you don't change the oil, but it's only going to go so far.
Right.
And every mile you're doing, if the oil is incapable of providing the right film thickness, is damaging something. And you're bartering the future at today's risk and minimal reward of trying not to spend so much. Everything you do in maintenance is not about fixing equipment. Maintenance is a risk mitigation strategy for the business. You spend a specific amount of money for people to inspect and replace wear components to mitigate the risk of downtime. And so it's just a balance of risk versus reward. And if they're currently in an economic scenario where it is more beneficial to absorb the risk, that's why they're asking you to do more with less. They're asking you to take on the risk. But the odd thing is they don't believe they're asking for risk. They still think it's okay to pick the phone up and yell at you if the asset fails. So right. Maintenance organization also has to be prepared to have that tough conversation. You asked for this additional risk. So
that's right. And they're, the people picking up the phone and yelling, they're the ones that are disconnected from it to begin with. And they're disconnected, but somehow they have the authority to make the decision on the asset, right? Crazy.
Well, you have that conversation all the time. The asset doesn't care. It doesn't care where your degree was from. It doesn't care what your financial background was. It doesn't care what you would like the budget to be. It just doesn't care.
That's right. That's right, man. Killer, spot on, George. That's why you're here, brother. I'm going to jump to Chris. Chris, you know why you're here. It's for insights into recruiting, talent, acquisition, all of those things. And for you, man, we found that 72% of companies predict staffing issues in 2024. And the labor cost is increasing, compounding with the shortage, right? What are your thoughts on that? How do people get ahead? What's driving it? What are some things that you've seen in supplying high quality talent with so many businesses where, what are they saying? What are they asking for essentially?
Well, let me take a step outside of thoughts and feelings for a second. There's 12.7 million people employed in manufacturing. And this is just one number that we're pulling. Obviously, we know your audience is a lot broader than manufacturing. With 12.7 million people in manufacturing, how many jobs do you think there are open in manufacturing right now, Bryan?
George knows better than me. I don't know. 1.8 million.
Yeah. Any of you guys want to take a guess?
I'm going to think it's probably
12.7 million people employed. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I pulled it about a month ago, so it's fresh. 9.6 million job openings.
Wow.
It's huge.
Yeah. So what you're feeling is real. And, it's not all doom and gloom. But I do want to lean on what George said, which is brilliant. And that's that your competitors don't care about your internal problems. The folks out there that are hiring and training and aggressive about recruitment and aggressive about creating the right environment for their people, they don't care what your problems are. They're going to recruit, they're going to grow, and they're going to groom. And the fact is, we are all doing more with less. Having said that, though, how are the people that you have, that you rely on, that you trust, growing? How are they improving? That's what we looked at. So we've actually built out the 5 pillars of the talent cycle. And we've done a lot of research in the looking, not just this reactive, I have a hole, I need to fill it, but a proactive, okay, I need to get people in. I need to nurture people who may not be ready to join yet, but I really want on my team. Instead of just interviewing people to screen them and get rid of them and having an HR system that takes 6 hours to get no response, we want to use those interviews as opportunities to share what we're doing in our facility. Onboarding. That's point 4. Is it just a safety meeting and orientation and good luck? Or are we really spending like the 90-day honeymoon period to make sure people are really getting what they invested in when they joined your company? And finally, how are we going to retain and ascend our people? What are we doing to keep them and grow them? So we're looking at this a lot more holistically, because there are companies that have full teams. there are companies that cover these gaps. It goes on every single day. It's not going to be everybody, but it can be you if you're really willing to invest in figuring out what it takes and then just working at it every day.
No doubt. And, I'm going to ask Bryan and George as well, but like, it almost seems like it would be beneficial for one business to leverage the woes of another business when it comes to hiring, right? I mean, you have a business down the street or a competitor that's struggling with hiring people, they're losing people. It seems like there's some benefit to figure out why that is, and then flip the script and change it to it and start doing the things they're not doing. Bryan, what do you think?
Oh, I completely agree. I think you even talked about it a little bit in the state of maintenance report, right? Like what are those programs to help boost, attracting that talent in, and also, keeping the folks that you have, right? What are the things that you can do? And we talked about, if you look in the state of the maintenance report, it talks about apprenticeship programs, to set up that talent coming in. You also have opportunities to take a look at, what are your employees looking for? How do you make that experience better for them? And, put that in place and to keep the employees that you have. I think both of those are crucial to fill that gap, because you don't want to be focusing all your energy on bringing folks in, and you haven't paid attention to what your current employees are looking for from an experience standpoint, so they're coming out right. We need to make sure you address both.
That's a crucial mistake. George, I saw you nodding along there, especially when he said ignoring the current employees that you have. What are your thoughts, man?
A couple points to the gap. One is you've got to be able to understand that it takes an investment to attract talent. And I literally know a company right now that says, well, we're short staffed and, we have a specific budget that we can pay people. But when somebody calls out, we have to shut a line down. So you're telling me you can't create a program that's cheaper than days of production of downtime that attracts and retains talent? Do you hear the words coming out of your mouth? You can afford to have downtime and lose customers because you're not delivering, but you can't afford to attract and retain talent. It just doesn't make any sense. The second piece is, quite honestly, I don't know that you'll fill 9 million jobs. Chris's points are all well laid out. On top of that, though, I think it would be unrealistic for a company to just assume they will always find the talent, because the talent coming in has a lower skill level than it did 10 years ago, especially in the skills trade areas. But even at the operator level, at this point, it's like, can you fog a spoon? Great, you're hired. That means that the organization also, in addition to everything Chris laid out, needs a plan on how they will design equipment for maintainability and operability. They have to design equipment to, for lack of better terminology, dumb it down. Because look, folks are going to be using their phone to look up how to do the repair. They're either going to use YouTube and get who knows what qualified person telling them what to do, or they're going to get your internal system that actually teaches them. So go get the knowledge from the people that exist today, capture it in your system, and figure out how to make it an app, because tomorrow they're all going to be on their phone and you don't know whose YouTube. They're going to the one that says the 5 squeezins, and they just, pump in a bunch of grease till it comes out of the seal. So
that's not what you do.
No, God, I hope not. So you have to do both. You got to do everything. I'm 100% on board with everything that was laid out. But in addition to that, we also have to figure out how to be prepared as the skill level drops, because it is dropping.
Right. Chris, do you when you have prospects coming to you looking to fill highly specialized roles or even remedial roles, are the asks from the employer sometimes way out of line with what's out there?
So in terms of specialists, reliability engineers, planners, they're right in line. I will tell you, we have done 3 hires in the last month that took a pay cut to get a better opportunity to grow. I have somebody right now on the line who's going to take a $50,000 pay cut for a maintenance manager job, because that's just the environment he's at. They pay for his car, everything, huge salary, but that lifestyle doesn't work for him. So
that was me, Chris.
Yeah, it's not to say that there aren't people out there that are for that, but ultimately people are going to go into the jobs and the environments that are for them. And, it's our job is to talk about the benefits beyond the benefit package. So on the high level, the benefits packages line up, one's higher salary, lower bonus. Generally speaking, that's not a problem. It's who am I working with? How can I grow? What are they going to teach me? What kind of problems am I solving? And what kind of team do I have to support that? That's the most important factor we discuss. On the hourly technician range, and I think that's something George is picking up on, that's a challenge, and we come across it a lot. And the ability to grow and groom people is a superpower. The ability to train, retain people is a superpower. We just onboarded a client today. Their average technician's been there for 7 years. That's the kind of client we want. That's the kind of environment where somebody can come in and they have a major strategic advantage because they can take somebody in and that person becomes better at their career. They know that they will be more valuable in 3 or 4 years, and they're going to be working with people that aren't going to be changing or gone. They aren't going to be working for a different manager in 6 months. That's a huge upside as well. So there's absolutely competitive advantages out there, and there's companies that are doing very, very well with it. It's just got to be something beyond, the paperwork is the paperwork, check the box. It's the opportunity that's going to win the game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm literally one of those people. I left a very high paying, great job for a different lifestyle. And George, you and I have talked about it. I mean, it's just something that had to be done, right? And it's, in a sense, I'm kind of glad people are doing that, just because the mental aspect of it, the well-being, the refreshingness of, coming home, spending time with your children, your family, doing the things you love to do, and then coming to work at a prescribed time, not a reactive time, and doing your job, right? In a decently cohesive environment where you're supported, and then going home and repeating the process. Manpower came up a lot, and it will continue to come up a lot,
Let me give you one that, and this isn't factual, but it's a great analogy. This is from the CEO of Capital One. He said that people spend 2% of their time recruiting and 75% of their time fixing recruiting mistakes. George, if your downtown analogy or your downtime analogies don't directly correlate to people, it's the same issue that goes on in the attraction and retention strategies.
George was going to say something. I saw him. He perked up there.
Yeah. So look, a reliable plan is not only a safe plan, it's an enjoyable plant to work at. I've been to plants where it's chaos and people are running around like chickens with their heads cut off and things are jamming and it's very stressful for an operator. And when you go into a plant that's reliable, where it doesn't have a lot of downtime, it doesn't have a lot of operational issues, people enjoy the work.
It sounds different.
At least have an opportunity to enjoy the work. So it not only is it a how do we fill the position from a financial perspective, how do we recruit talent, but you retain talent because you create an environment they want to work in. And that's not just because of the culture of the people, it's also because of the relaxed environment. And so I think it's great. If people should leave environments that are chaotic. They have to. I was in a webinar today and somebody asked me a question. My response to the question was, you should find another place to work. If you're pushing the boulder uphill that hard and you have marketable skills, find another place to use them.
That's right. Right. It's simple as that.
Plain Go with your feet.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, staying along, this one's for you, Bryan. I mean, staying along the same lines is, 60% of companies are looking to contractors for maintenance. They're some of them, not all of them. Some of them are going, you know what? We can't hire anybody. We'll bite the bullet. We'll get the contractor in here. They have a specified skill set. Maybe they have a more flexible schedule, whatever. But Bryan, I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Like, what do you think that's all about?
Sure. I think we talked about a lot of the reasons, right? But I think if you look at, why are so many companies looking external to fill these gaps? You've got a shortage of labor as a number one reason. Them needing some specialized trade or specialized skill that they're not able to attract. you know, temporary projects and the flexibility to scale up and scale down as needed. You know, those are all factors that come into that decision point. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, right? But I think you've got to find that balance, right? It's crucial to take a look at, you know, okay, I've got my full-time employees, and you know, I'm looking to augment that headcount with some external folks. You know, what does that balance look like? I think the advantage, you know, I talked about it a little bit already. You know, being able to scale up and scale down without the risk to your business is crucial, especially, you know, in the economic times that we're coming out of right now. You know, if you have companies that are looking to do layoffs, or they just laid off folks and they're evaluating the data, they're probably not really looking to bring a ton of folks in today, because you know they're afraid that they may have to do another round of layoffs, right? So you know, bringing in external folks is a good you know, gap fill there. But looking across, you know, kind of the disadvantages to that strategy, if you don't have that right balance, you can lose quality control, especially in the maintenance world. If you've got vendors coming in doing your maintenance and you don't have a foundational, you know, policy in place that allows you to maintain that visibility on what that vendor work is accomplishing,
That's
and
huge.
the control associated with it. We see that a lot, where you know, when you've got a lot of external folks performing work within the plant or the data center or the facility, right? What we find oftentimes is the quality control slips, right? Because if you don't have the you know, if you don't have the resources to keep an eye on those things, now you're leaning on that contractor, that vendor, to provide quality results, and you know, a lot of times it reduces the reliability of the plant. Then again, you know, having the contractors there and coming in, one, it reduces the list, but two, you can get specialized skills that, you know, you may not need in the long term, or you may have trouble attracting, and this, you know, this firm or this contractor has those skills, and they're able to come in and provide that in that narrow window. So I think looking across, you know, the needs there, as long as you have a strategic approach and you have that balance, I don't think it's a terrible thing. If you do lean too much, though, on external support, make sure you have that foundation in place to ensure that, you know, things are being done the way that you expect them to be done, that the quality doesn't slip, and that you have, you know, all that information's feeding back into your CMMS or your EAM system to give you visibility on the health and the reliability of your assets.
Right. And you know, when I was managing several facilities, contract work always came for me, it was three things. It was either flexing up for like a big down, like an outage, you know, on the waterfront. It was a specialized skill, or it was something that we probably could do, but I wanted to shift the risk away from me and onto them.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot more accountability with the repair than you would possibly internally, right? And one other note you had about like the transparency of work and understanding the availability effects of the work is, in the past, you know, I used to have a tablet that contractors would come in, and that would be their tablet with our CMMS on it. They would open a work order in our CMMS and complete the work order at our way. And they did not get a PO until that work order was turned into us and reviewed. And I didn't do that for a number of years, and I got exactly what you said. And then I was like, you know what? They need to play by my rules when they're at my facility. So they're going to work in my CMMS, and they're going to do what I want them to do. And it, you know, if they know they're not going to get their paycheck, they do what you want them to do.
100% agree. And most contractors are used to that anyway, right?
Right.
I mean, they go place to place, you know, kind of the step one is, what are the rules of the road, right? You know, how do you do things here? Is that aligned with the way we do things, or do we need to make a change, right? That's kind of vendor onboarding 101 right there.
Right. Scope dictates too, right? They need to subscribe to the scope of work as well.
For sure, but definitely an area that I've seen, you know, kind of over and over again, you know, pop its head up, where, you know, you've got a piece of paper that's filled out and uploaded into CMMS, and you can't read it, and it doesn't have the value. You know what I mean? I mean, the examples are endless there, but you know, putting in place something just like you described, right? Hey, here's the way we're going to accomplish this maintenance and track it. Gives you that overview. It gives you the ability to ensure that, you know, you're leaving that job knowing that the job was done correctly and you've got the data that you need.
Right. Yeah, it's super important. The transparency aspect of corporate contractors is huge. I mean, we've all of us have been a part of one that's gone really, really well, and one where you had full confidence and it did not go the way you wanted it to go. Or you
Exactly.
work multiple shifts and the contractor shift is the night shift. You go to bed, you wake up with something that's supposed to be done and it's not. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of that. So the next thing is, it's like group discussion, is 65% of companies rely on CMMS for maintenance monitoring, and then some 35% are using no form of work management whatsoever. I want to quote George. I actually quoted you earlier today too. Not every company needs a CMMS, right? Well, we agree on that. Not every single company needs it. Now, for certain optimization standpoint, scaling business, financials, things like that, yeah, it becomes something that you might need. But a guy who is in a machine repair shop is one guy. He's doing handwritten work orders. It's managing 5 machines. Probably doesn't need it, right? But the adoption of technology, you would think in the 21st century, being 2023, 2024, people would be like, oh, no doubt, super easy. I can do it right on my phone. I can open a work order in 5 seconds. I can email, track, connect, API, blah, 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 all the stuff I don't know anything about. You would think it'd be higher adoption. But I think, going back to the original question, which was about budgets, it's like, yeah, budgets are expanding, but having a way to communicate the value for very specific things has not improved. It's about being able to connect the dots through the business, a value chain from a technician to an executive, and how do we bridge this gap all the way through to get that budget into effect that's meaningful for us, or our CMMS. And I'm just kind of curious, just each one of you, like, George, why do you think people are not adopting technology CMMS?
I don't, so there's 2 things. There's the adoption of, we bought one and no one wants to use it. And in that case, oftentimes it's because they didn't do the correct selection process.
No doubt.
Really select something that people will adopt to. And they did not enforce the CMMS to manage the business process that exists. And companies think essentially that I bought a disc, so maintenance should be fixed. And it really doesn't work that way, right? They make the functionality that everyone can use. They don't make everyone's functionality.
Sure. That's right.
So you've got to be able to adopt to it. And then there's the people that don't have a CMMS, right? Why are they not adopting to the 21st century? And in some cases, it's because they don't know how to make the argument for it, right? So leadership and finance thinks you're asking for rims on the car. And that's not what it is, right? You would never tell finance, it's okay, we'll get you an ERP, but you're not allowed to have cost centers.
Right.
Well, that's
no GL codes for you.
Right. You can't have any of that. That's the same as saying, well, we're not going to go collect our equipment hierarchy. They're equivalent.
That's right.
Finance, hey, finance, that's fantastic, but you don't get cost centers. You get no clarity into taxation. You get no clarity into where the money's being spent. You just get a checkbook. Go work with the checkbook. So now, because the maintenance organization is not seen as a viable business unit that adds value, and that's our fault. It's not everybody else's fault. It's our fault. We have to educate our maintenance people to talk that language and to be able to document what they do and to be able to make an argument. Oh, and when the finance team says, well, you can't have the CMMS, well, then you get no data, you get no information, you get no historical information, and you create, especially today. So you didn't do it 20 years ago. The pandemic has happened. The skills are leaving. The silver tsunami's happening. Every baby boomer's retiring. They're all gone. The tribal knowledge is gone, and you didn't want to spend the money to collect the information. You got exactly what you asked for. You're going to continue to be behind the 8 ball. It's about time you swallow the bullet and start getting the data collected, because you don't have a lot of options. The next generation coming in is not going to work for you because they are all on their device.
That's right.
They will pick another company to work for.
That's right. I mean, essentially, like, in some respects, you have to put them against a rock and a hard place, right?
Well, they've already put themselves there.
Well, right. Whether they put themselves there or they're going to put themselves there, right? Or you know, some form of risk is going to put them there. Bryan, what are your thoughts? Adoption, as George put it, in two buckets, right? I mean, we'll focus on the adoption of I don't have a system,
Sure.
you know, like that.
Well, I think George nailed it, as usual. The first aspect there is the valuation, right? Is you know, how do you make the argument that shows that this CMMS system is going to save me money, right? You know, so creating that proposition and actually being able to utilize data to show is important for, you know, the folks that are making the decision. I think a lot of times that's just not done very well. And I agree, not every company is going to need, you know, some sort of EAM system or some sort of CMMS. You know, if it's a small company that's not looking to scale, then maybe what they're doing today is fine. But I think the important word there is scale, right? Even if you're a small company, and, you know, I was talking to a company just yesterday, you know, they're looking to procure other companies to do the same thing that they're doing. As they're scaling, that's the major concern there, right? Is, you know, how are you tracking your assets as you procure this company's assets and this company's assets, and, you know, do you have a solid foundation there to build on? And so I think, you know, showing that value and showing that, you know, keeping a total cost of ownership there, and identifying, you know, hey, how much money am I spending on maintenance? How much money am I spending on spare parts? You can do that manually, but it's much more
Oh, it's a pain. It's a pain.
yeah, and it's taking labor out of there, right? So I think, you know, evaluating that and showing the value of the system, picking the right system is hugely important. You know, what we normally do is we'll do a requirements gathering exercise and identify what does the business need before we ever think about what the solution is going to be, right? And once we identify that, then we do a technical requirements gathering, and we connect those dots, right? So we understand, hey, this is what the business needs today, and this is a good solution for that.
Right.
What are the plans, right? Is the company planning on scaling in the next 5 years? Yes, then let's expand that to look and see, you know, what solution helps them today and prevents them from having to switch to another solution the instant they decide to scale, right? So the selection process is cool.
I think also too that like you can substitute money, the word money or the idea of money in this case, with risk, waste, manpower, right? So the way we communicate it to the specific shareholder or stakeholder has to be fluid, right? Because you go talk to the safety guy and you're talking about money, he's gonna be like, I don't care, I need people to be safe. So we're gonna talk about risk, right? You go to operations, you're not talking about he may say, oh, it's $15 billion a minute while this thing sounds like, okay, great, but you have $100,000 an hour in manpower standing around when this thing's not working, right? So I think there's a lot of ways to put that. And Chris, my last question for you is, do you find when you're going through, or when you're going through selection processes of candidates for all various roles, how often does the expertise or experience with technology come up, whether it's CMMS, EAM, predictive maintenance, you know, all that stuff? Is it common? Are people do they know they need it?
I was listening to you guys. So we have, I was doing an interview with one of our silver tsunami failures. We sometimes get guys who retire and then realize I'm home too much. I need a project. So I had somebody who we work with, a really great guy who was coming in as a reliability engineer to help a very, very large facility that was short by a couple of heads and had some tough hires to do. And that was absolutely a major topic. What CMMS do you use? How do you use it? Who's in charge with it? You know, how do you tell me about your planning and scheduling team? So, I mean, large or intermediate size, you know, or even if you're talking about with technicians, knowing what to do and not having to hit your head against the wall. I mean, being able to bring people in, they can hit the ground running, and here's your PMs and get to it, and it's organized. Huge retention difference. You know, somebody's got to figure out what they're doing. Not everybody's gonna have, you know, the most organized storeroom who can hand them, here's the bucket and here's the kit you need to go out. That's okay. Ultimately, the fact that your people aren't reinventing the wheel every time they do something, and that you're organized, you have that knowledge base well contained, it gives people the satisfaction of doing their work. I mean, this is a great thing about working your hands is at the end of the day, you see something's physically different than when you started with it. That's what has people going home and wanting to come back the next day. It's not your paycheck and it's not your health care plan. The fact that I can come in and I can see this thing is different. These people are operating differently. Your operators had this one challenge that I solved and I got this thing knocked out for them. That's the rewarding piece of what we do. And being organized with our information gives your team that job satisfaction of being off the hamster wheel and actually working towards something. You have to be able to track it and put it together. And technology is an irreplaceable factor.
It's the multiplier. And I get all giddy when you talk about that because I call it the real-time results mindset. You know, I am a person who turns wrenches still, and I find great satisfaction in going, oh my God, this is broken. I just fixed it. I know it's right. It's complete. It happened and transpired with my hands right in front of me.
You're dirty, but the result is that, right? You know, it's like the filter transfers off the problem onto you, and it's like, hell yeah, you know, you can smell it on you, and it's like, yeah, something happened here.
No
doubt.
It's
really, really rewarding work.
No doubt. Well, fellas, we are coming up on time, and this has been awesome. I have so much respect for all of you. You guys are ambassadors with UpKeep. Please go to upkeep.com and check out the ambassadors tab. You will see, you can get all the information you need to know about George, Bryan, and Chris, and many others that will be on as well. I'm glad we could really discuss the high points of the state of the maintenance. I think the state of the maintenance report could be a 5-hour podcast if we were really to dig into the details. But I recommend everybody listening, go to upkeep.com and check out the full state of the maintenance report. It's very intuitive, very cool. This was just the tip of the iceberg. We wanted to touch on these things, and I can't thank you guys enough, and we will definitely be in touch. And it's been awesome. On behalf of UpKeep, I thank you very much. And even, you know, you guys are close friends of mine, and we'll keep rolling with it. And I really appreciate it, guys. And we'll see you on the next one.
Bryan, thanks for putting this together. This is heaps of fun. Happy to do it.
Very welcome, boys. And for UpKeep, this has been the Pledge Pros Podcast. I'm Bryan Bieschke, the head of communities and partnerships. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you.